just coming into the spring turn, or the spring quarter, in 1743 here in Mistral by Red Sash Games. You can see we're on turn 5, very quiet winter. But we've had some, well, I just thought I'd give you a sort of overview of the current situation, and some ideas about what might be happening in 1743 based on some orders I've just drawn for each side. So on this events flow chart, we had the Treaty of Worms happen in 1743, and that meant that Piedmont Sardinia joined to the British. So its ports are now friendly to the British. So Villefranche, the port of Villefranche up over here, and the port of Cagliari here are both now friendly to the British. And the British are actually going to rebase some squadrons of extremely beaten up ships of the line into Villefranche, because I think this thing gets one repair roll a turn rather than the normal British repair rolls of quarterly. And so they're going to move out some of their most damaged shipping into Villefranche and just let it tick away being repaired there. So that's one little thing going on. It also means that the Alpine military campaign is now in play and can start happening. So we'll have the Apennines, Po Valley and Alpine campaigns in play. Neither of the Apennine or Po Valley campaigns resulted in an Austrian or Bourbon win. In either case, they ended up just drifting around in the middle hexes without coming to any conclusion. So that didn't affect anything. In 1742, the Corsican insurgency has not moved on. But yeah, we've now got 3 military campaigns happening. Piedmont Sardinia with the British rebasing some ships. We've had a French admiral join the fleet here, the Côte de Bruyère, a timid 243. On the British side, we've had some promotions and some, I think someone joined as well. Lestock was definitely promoted. He's now a very capable 443, although he's timid. Rowley, an extremely competent 453 bold. We'd rather like him as the overall fleet admiral, so we could be making orders rolls and reinforcement rolls against his strategy of 5 rather than Haddock's 3. Similarly, we've got Von Matthews here, a aggressive, a rash 353. Yeah, he's been promoted as well. And do we have a captain up here? No, we had a captain promoted to admiral. Okay, so yeah, the British with a very capable set of commanders here. They would just like a higher strategy rating for the overall fleet commander, but you know, you can't have everything. Notable that compared to the Spanish, okay, they're quite good ratings in some places: 342, 242, 36, 3442, 3 and 31, but timid, cautious and timid. Not very reliable in terms of fleet action, causing casualties to the enemy in fleet action. So yeah, interesting to take a look at the state of the fleets actually, because that will determine what you can get done in the year. So the French in Toulon have got 2 squadrons in good shape. B here with 2 damage points on it. A under here with no damage on it. And the Terrible, why it's on its plus 10 DP side, I don't know. That's just me being an idiot. The Terrible here as a what are they called? Flagship, if they wanted one. And then some stuff down here that needs repair. The Naples fleet is gradually being repaired. It's done quite well on its repair rolls over the winter, down to 4 and 5 damage points, so slowly being turned back into a really competent force, and all its auxiliaries back in play. And the Spanish have here a squadron, 2 squadrons undamaged in Cadiz, a couple of flagships and some 50 gunners, and an undamaged squadron of 3 ships of the line down in Barcelona. So 3 squadrons, some 50 gunners and a couple of flagships for them. So in total they've got sort of 5 squadrons in good shape, 2 in middling shape, and some stuff that's sort of unseaworthy. On the British side, they've got a squadron in Gibraltar in good shape, 1, 2, 3, 5 squadrons in 0-1 damage in Port Mahon, so that's 6 squadrons in very good condition. 1 pretty beat up, 1 very beat up, and then some 50 gunners, and a one sail squadron that they've just had as reinforcements, and then they've got 3 extremely damaged, sort of 10 plus damage point squadrons sailing over to Villefranche to just sit in the shipyards and be refitted for a year. So yeah, about equal in terms of ships on either side, I'd say. 3 Spanish squadrons, 2 French and 2 Nepalese against 6 well-maintained squadrons and some other bits and pieces. Yeah, so that's what each side has got. The British player has just committed to a whole bunch of orders, picked 3 and drew 3 at random, and the 3 they picked were show of force. No, they didn't pick that actually. They picked show of force against Naples, show of force against Toulon, and this one, support the army, the Alpine army efforts. So they picked these 3 and drew these 3 at random: show of force Venice, cruise the Spanish coast, which I now can't pick up, cruise the Spanish coast and cruise the Adriatic coast. They're not unhappy with those sets of orders. Show of force against Venice. Venice is a long way away from anything up over here, but it is viable to do that show of force order, and cruising the Spanish and the Adriatic coasts are reasonably viable orders for them to do in their current situation, so they're happy with that. They can slide out of Port Mahon to Barcelona and down to Gibraltar and back. That's not a problem. Cadiz and back, that's not a problem. So they're reasonably content with that set of orders and are now figuring out how to allocate them between formations, which they haven't formed yet because they want to keep everything in their shipyards for the quarterly repair rolls. Over on the Bourbon side, they picked 2 support army Villefranche, so they support the army, Alpine army, they picked, and show of force against Villefranche. So both those involve blockading or interdicting or sitting outside Villefranche, and they're both French orders. I thought that might lead to quite a lot of conflict in the outside Villefranche, but because they're French and the French and British aren't at war, they'll just ignore each other. And then the random orders they got for doing that were cruise the African coast and interdict the Sicilian Channel, again 2 that are relatively straightforward. So that's the tasks that either side have currently got. The British obviously have 6 orders and the Bourbons only 4, and the Bourbons will probably look to pick up some more once they're confident that their Naples fleet is free to do some stuff and so fully repaired. So that's the situation. I'm going to go into, there'll be pretty much nothing happening in the operations phase this turn apart from these rendezvous orders rebasing these independent squadrons into Villefranche. And we will get some a full quarterly events phase at the end of this turn to see, whether what's going to happen. The Spanish have got some a squadron returning from the flotter, but it's got 4 damage on it, and it's going to get another, I don't know, D10 plus 5 damage or something terrible added to it, so it could come back really beat up and ships could sink and so on. And that's roughly where we are. Yeah. Last thing, current prestige totals: 9 for the Bourbons, 7 for the British. The Bourbons got +1 for completing one more order than the British last turn. The British didn't lose any for that, but lost 1 for bumping up a reinforcement roll. So that's it, 9-7. But Haddock was kept in post, and so the Bourbons just edging it slightly at the moment. As we come into the main sort of activities, turns of 1743. I've been away from Mistral for a few weeks due to real life getting in the way, but back playing again, and we're in turn 10, which is a turn into the summer of 1743, where a Neapolitan fleet, 2 squadrons here, are attempting to leave Naples, and a British squadron under William Rowley is under orders to do a show of force against Naples, and that's brought the 2 forces into contact and an inevitable clash. I just thought I'd use this to highlight some little wrinkles in the combat system, or some interesting points in the combat system. Rowley won the wind gauge as the Spanish came out of port, because coming out of port gives you a much lower, reduces your chances of having the wind gauge compared to being on station, and Rowley's a better commander with a 4 against a 3, so he ended up with 9 and the Spanish with 6, and he won the wind gauge. He is an aggressive commander, and the Spanish admiral, actually, I can't read that, de la Peña, he's actually the overall commander of the Spanish force here. He won the wind gauge. He's timid, and that means that the battle intensity is down 1. So if Rowley choose a heavy intensity battle, it would actually be medium, and if he chooses to choose medium or light, it's light. What's interesting here is that as well as determining how much damage people take, the battle intensity determines how many squadrons you can have in an individual combat. So you pair off squadrons to in individual combats. If one side's got additional squadrons, then they can add them into these combats. So you'd expect this to be a 2-to-1 fight, which would then massively favour the Spanish. But you can only have 2 squadrons in an individual combat if it's at least medium intensity, if the battle's medium intensity, and you can only have 3 if it's high intensity, and 3 is the maximum. So you can have 3-to-1, but only if you can create a high intensity battle. Obviously outnumbered 2-to-1, Rowley is going to choose a light intensity battle because he doesn't want to take damage. He wants to stay on station and continue completing his orders, and so he just wants to hold these Spanish attacks at arm's length. He's also getting a column shift in his favour due to a slightly better leadership rating. So yeah, he's declaring a light intensity battle here in order to minimise the impact that the Neapolitan fleet can have on his own ships while he tries to complete his orders. So we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure how long he'll be able to stay on station, because if he wants to stick around, de la Peña can keep putting different ships in as the sort of lead squadron, if you like. So it could be that he gets sort of whittled down too quickly to be able to stick around, but we'll see. This may not be the only one of these combats that gets fought. There could be running battles here before one side chooses to break off. So over the last couple of increments, we've had some running battles here between Rowley and de la Peña off the coast of Naples. The Spanish moved away and then came roaring back on the wind, and so established the wind gauge in the previous increment. and that allowed them to inflict a lot of damage on the British. They were able to have the high intensity battle they wanted, and they got, I think they inflicted 5 damage on the British, and the British only did 2 back and put them up to 3, so that was pretty good for them. But de la Beynie then stuck around to carry on skirmishing with Rowley. Rowley re-established the weather gauge because he's a better commander, and all other things being equal, that tipped the balance for him. He chose a light intensity battle, and we got combat on the 4 table on the combat damage table, and Rowley, with his higher leadership rating, was able to apply a column shift. So he chose that the Spanish would be on the 4 column and he'd be on the 3. The result was a 0, which meant sunk ships on either side. So both sides had a ship sunk, but on the Spanish side we've got an asterisk, which means there's a chance of a leader casualty. So de la Beynie could be captured, wounded or killed in this combat. So we're about to find out what's going to happen. Let's give it a quick die roll and see where we end up. It's a 0, and over here, actually that means that de la Beynie has been captured by the British. Okay, that's quite funny. I don't quite know what it means, but it's not good for the Bourbon player, that's for sure. So de la Beynie has been captured by Rowley. What that will also mean is that this formation, if it carries on fighting with de la Beynie, Garn will have a nominal leadership rating of 1 now, and that's terrible because Rowley's got a 4. And so he'll have a couple of column shifts in any future engagements. So super interesting stuff happening off the coast of Naples, with de la Beynie managing to get himself captured. That is quite hilarious. All right, I don't know what it means, but I'm going to look it up. Sadly, I've realised that this can't have happened because after the heavy intensity combat that they fought in the previous impulse, both sides would have been disorganised, and therefore the Spanish couldn't have voluntarily chosen to do battle again, and neither could the British. So this battle wouldn't have been fought. So neither side has lost a ship, and de la Beynie, very luckily, has not been captured. So yeah, I'm going to reset here because this battle shouldn't have been fought, and carry on. I'm not sure what the capture would have done, but I'm not going to go into that now. Amusing it was, but it was a mistake on my part. So we'll carry on without this combat having occurred. So just finishing off here over by Naples, having shown you that that de la Beynie couldn't have been captured because they were disorganised. What actually happened was that the fleets went away and tried to reorganise, which they can do at the start of each impulse. De la Beynie managed to reorganise, attacked the British again, captured a British ship, inflicted tons of damage. The British squadron over there under Rowley is up to 18 damage points now. So they had a ship sunk, and we're in serious danger of 2 being sunk, but rolled a 9 and managed to keep one afloat for now. Captured a British ship which struck its colours, but also managed to get himself captured. The rolls were so high that we had to make, the Spanish took 8 damage split between their 2 squadrons. The British took 7 plus 4, 11 damage. And both sides had to make a roll to see whether the commanders were captured, and de la Beynie or killed or whatever, and Rowley escaped and de la Beynie was captured. But anyway, the Spanish have now sunk 2 ships of the line, or ships of the line D, this year, and so got a point of prestige.
the British have only sunk one Spanish ship, so they're currently losing a point of prestige. So there's now clear daylight between the sides in terms of prestige. But the British Rowley did manage to hang on around Naples and complete his orders. So that's good. The British have now completed 6, and the Bourbon player currently on 4, midway through the summer. So yeah, this flotilla under Rowley has now got to limp back to Port Mahon, probably getting another ship sunk while it's on its way, and actually he might go back to Villefranche. It might be closer to get back to Villefranche up over here and park up in there where there are some other British ships, which I've just remembered I haven't been giving repair rolls to. So yeah, I'll make a repair roll for the June-July turn. So on we go. De la Benya captured. He was replaced as overall commander by Liano. And the Spanish commander is Navarro, and I think Pintado is extremely annoyed that he got passed over. Anyway, here we go. Coming into turn 11. Okay, so we're going into the sort of administrative phase in turn 11 here in the summer of 1743 in Mistral, Red Sash Games. This Spanish Grand Flotilla tangled with a British flotilla going in the opposite direction up over here. It was pretty much honours even in the battle that they fought, but the Spanish ships were much more heavily damaged going into it because they'd already had a fight with the British up over here, which the one where they won fairly conclusively, outnumbering Rowley and his single squadron. This was a much more even fight, 9 ships to 8. It came out on as even, but the Spanish really are in quite a bad way now. So I'm just looking at they've got 3 squadrons, one with 11 damage on it, one with 9, and one with just 1 ship in it with 13. That was the captured British ship. The British have seen this flotilla come out of Naples, drop into Tunis, and now follow the African coast, so they could be pretty sure that this has got a cruise African coast orders, and are now considering whether they've got enough firepower in Port Mahon to send out an admiral with 3 squadrons to see if they can't do this thing some damage. And they have got 3 squadrons in Port Mahon, 1 with no damage on it and 2 with 3 damage on them. So they could A, outnumber what they know is here, because they know it's got 9 ships, and they could send 12 out to confront them. And secondly, they think they know roughly where they're going. So I think that's what's going to happen. The British are going to load up a new formation with 3 squadrons and try and hunt this Grand Flotilla down. Other than that, well, they are actually doing an order to patrol the Spanish coast. So's that. So we're on 4 orders for the Spanish, 6 for the British. The Spanish have sunk a couple of British ships and have got some prestige, as we've seen. The British have sunk 1 Spanish ship of the line D, need another one to get some prestige together. And that's where we are at the moment. Sadly, I think, not because I'm not enjoying it immensely, I'm having real fun with this game, and sadly I think I need to pack it away because I need the table space to learn some games that I'm hoping to play face to face in a couple of months. So I've got to pack this away, not because I'm not having a great time with it. I'd happily leave this on the table and play through 1744 and 45 and see what happens as the French come into the war. But I can't, because I need to learn North Africa 41 and possibly some other things as well. I'd like to have a quick look at burning banners, and yeah, possibly something else as well. The new Napoleonics thing, not Battlefields, the Napoleonic Wars. I've got that played. Know the rules for that. It's the Cull Parody one, Battle Commander. So yeah, I'm going to get Battle Command, certainly North Africa 41 out for a little spin to learn that, Battle Commander and Burning Banners. So yeah, I've got some rules learning to do, and yeah, just need the table space. So I'm going to finish 1743, come back with a roundup of where we're at, but then sadly this is going to have to be put to one side, and I may come back to it. I don't think I'll note down everything I've got or where all the setup is, although maybe I will. Maybe actually it'd be quite easy to take notes of what the situation is, because there's not a heavy counter density here. So perhaps I will, and then maybe I can reset it up for the start of 1744 later in the year.
Here in Mistral, Red Sash Games, the British force out of Port Mahon has just had a lot of fun chasing down this Spanish flotilla, Bourbon flotilla, patrolling the North African coast. He's quicker because he's got the Spanish have got damaged ships in there, which is cutting their movement allowance by one. And he managed to catch the wind out of Port Mahon into here, straight into the Barbary coast, out into here, caught the wind down here, caught the wind up here, and caught the wind across here, and made it to the Straits of Gibraltar in the same time as this Spanish flotilla was able to chug against the wind along the North African coastline. That was really satisfying, I have to say. When it works, it's really good fun. Partly because it works so rarely, partly because it's so infrequent that you are able to engage the enemy on your own terms. And being in straits means you're automatically spotted, so they didn't even have to make search rolls. Also, being in straits means that the battle intensity can't be low. Light intensity is not available, it's at least medium, which is good because this British force is led by the timid Lestock, and the Spanish flotilla, having had de la Benya captured, is being led by a timid notional leader, which would have been an automatic light intensity battle, but being in straits it's automatically medium. Well, it's medium at minimum, and with two timid commanders it's going to be medium. So I've rolled the dice to see which column of the table we're on, and we're going to be on the 5 column on the damage as a baseline, and the battle as it stands is laid out over here. We've got the stock with a full strength squadron with 4 damage points on it up against a Spanish squadron with 11 damage points on it. We've got a captain Barnett here, full strength squadron with 4 DPs up against a Spanish squadron with 13, and he's got the backup of another full strength squadron with a single damage point on it, part of Lestock's command. And then over here we've got 3 ships with 2 damage on them up against a single ship with 14, and we're on the 5 column. The fact that this only has a notional leader, he has a rating of 0, so Lestock can shift the column by 2 in this combat, either more damage on the Spanish or less damage on him. Similarly, Barnett can shift it by 3, either less damage on him or more on the Spanish, and he's also going to get plus 4 damage because he's got 4 more ships than the opponent. And on this it's just going to be a straight roll, but with a plus 2 more damage because it's 3 ships against 1. So I'm going to roll that out and see where we get to. So here's the outcome of all that. Lestock's squadron ended up with 8 damage, so they're now at move 3, and these guys are on 16. and will have to take a roll to see if they sink, because they've got 2 more than their 14 allowance. Over here, these guys now on 6 and 3 damage, but these guys are on a colossal 24. One of them will automatically sink because that's 10 over their 14, and then we'll make a roll to see if the second one sinks, and then possibly a third. And over here, this squadron went up to 8 damage. This guy's on 22, and something will almost certainly sink there as well. So sinking rolls, you subtract your damage point allowance from your damage total. So 16 minus 14 is 2. If you roll less than that on a d10, that or less actually, it's equal to or less than, then a ship sinks. So on that first squadron, they get a 4 and nothing sinks. On this one, 24 minus 14 is 10, so the first one automatically sinks, so there's 1 sinking. And then you make another roll, and I can't remember whether it's +3 or +4 on the dice for each subsequent roll, and I'm going to have to try and find that one-handed in the rule book while I check. It's 8.33 something. Let's have a quick look. Sorry about this. +3. So we're now going to roll another dice with a +3 on it. And if it's less than 24, another ship will sink. So less than 10, I should say, because they're on 24 minus 14 is 10. So that die with a +3 is 4. That's still less than 10. So that's 2 sunk. There. And then they make another die roll, now with a +6 on it. And they've got a 9 with a +6 is 15, and so a third ship is not sunk. And then over here, this single ship has got 22 DPs on it, so 22 minus 14, they've got a 7, and that ship is sunk. So they've just had 3 ships sunk here. Now we make a roll to see whether any of them struck their colours and were captured rather than sunk. So I just need a different chart or table. So we roll a die, and it's basically a percentage, and it's from 0 to 100% in 20% increments. A 0 means that 100% of those ships were captured. So the British just captured 3 Spanish ships and can add them to their own squadrons, if they need to, they can create a new squadron to hold the excess. I'm having to work out what DPs they would have on them, because that's an interesting concept, especially here where the Spanish ships have a higher DP total than British ships. So I may have to fudge around the rules a little bit there, because I found them not quite accurate enough to get us where we need to be. They do pretty much lay out the process, but not in its entirety. So what we're going to do is we'll essentially add a ship to L, because it's got space in it, but we'll also have to add some damage points to it, which will put it up to like 10 damage, and then we'll get a new squadron. Now the rules would say that would have 2 DPs on it per ship, so it would have 4 DPs on it, which seems a bit unlikely, since the ship we just captured or the ones that sunk had 24 and 22 on them. On the other hand, they can't have 24 and 22 because they'll just sink again straight away. So I'm not quite sure what this means. What I've done previously when this has happened is assigned them to an existing squadron as if it were taking them, given them that DP total, and then gone from there. So what I may do in this instance is add them here to the lowest DP squadron the British have got, which is 3, and then add 2 per ship, 5, and end up with a 2-ship squadron with 7 DPs on it, which is, in British terms, is a pretty knackered squadron. Let's be fair, it's got its movement reduced and it's limping along a bit, and that seems reasonable. But I am having to ad hoc the rules a little bit because they're not fully comprehensive on this. Anyway, a pretty decisive naval battle. 3 ships sunk. That's going to be 2 prestige for the British and -2 prestige for the Bourbon player, and we'll go from there.
End of 1743 here in Mistral, Red Sash Games, and a big shift in the prestige standings. The British up on 9 now, and the Bourbons down on 6. That was in part due to this quite resounding British victory in the Straits of Gibraltar over a sinking 3, capturing stroke sinking 3 Bourbon vessels there, and also due to the orders tally for the year, which ran out 7-1 for the British, so 7 succeeded, 1 failed, and 4-1 for the Bourbons, so 3 better for the British player, and that also stood them in good stead on the prestige chart. We had some outcomes in the land campaigns as well. The Bourbons came out top in the Alpines, and that is now pro-Bourbon instead of neutral at the start of the war. And the Austrians won the Po Valley campaign. Apennines was a draw. That's shifted things slightly in terms of future events that can happen. The Po Valley campaign didn't actually change that much. If the Bourbons win that, then Venice swings Bourbon, and then if the Austrians can win it back, then Venice will swing neutral again. So there's a bit of a tug of war over Venice in that Po Valley campaign. But the Alpine campaign win for the Bourbons meant that a second Treaty of Worms could now potentially be signed in a future events phase up over on that chart. So the British have quietly built up a head of steam here, largely due to the fact that they've now got a very sizable navy in theatre, and the Bourbons are running out of ships. As it stands, the Bourbons have got 4 French and 3 Spanish ships that could set sail in a decent state of repair, and pretty much everything else is in a real mess. I mean, they've got 1 squadron with 6 damage points on it, which is less than half for them. That would be a lot for a British ship. And the French have got 4 ships that could sail. By contrast, the British have got, well, not that much more, but they've got two squadrons that could sail out Gibraltar with only a couple of damage points. 1 out of Port Mahon that could sail with 4. So they're not doing much better. But for some reason it feels like they are. Perhaps just because they've got a lot more ships generally, and so they're able to cycle through them and usually have a couple of squadrons ready whenever they want them. And the Bourbon player is not often in that capability due to much smaller navies, even though they get regular repairs going on. Regular repairs are not that useful when your navy is sitting around with 24 damage points on it, because that's still 2 years of work to get it back into the sea. So we're coming into 1744, where the Second Family Compact can be signed, and then France can actually declare war on Britain. So political events coming up in the next year that will change the game again. But I'm going to have to put this on pause because I need to learn a couple of other games for forthcoming face-to-face play. I've decided that this is sufficiently engrossing. In fact, I'm loving playing it. It's really enjoyable, relaxing, calming, and it's got this kind of slow, meditative feel to it, where the changes are quite sudden and quite subtle rather than sudden, and major naval battles, you see why they're so infrequent and so sort of important when they actually happen. And that's really brilliant to see in an operational game which is trying to portray that, what the actual history was, rather than lots of flashy action all the time. So yeah, really enjoying this. I think I should be able fairly simply to make a note of the current standings and situation. I don't think that's going to be difficult. I can just make written notes of where we're up to and pack it up and return to it later in the year. That's my plan. Reset this up later in the year and carry on, and at least see what happens when the French come into the war. On one hand, you might think that would be a benefit for the Bourbon player, to have more ships available to try and interfere with the British. But all those ships are also prestige waiting for the British to rack up if they could isolate some French squadrons and outnumber them heavily. So at the moment, the French get to conduct orders and rack up the order count for the Bourbon player with impunity, and that they wouldn't be able to do that anymore. They'd have to be watching out for whether they were going to get intercepted, trapped, and so on. So I think it's a double-edged sword, the French coming into the war, but it does also open up a whole host of treaties and political events and swings of the neutrality of minor neutrals and all kinds of stuff. So it will be. I want to get to the point where that stuff is happening, and then we're just on the verge of that. It's like we've played 3 years of the game to sort of set up that shift of gear. So it would be a shame to just stop the game now and have to do all that again in order to get into the really eventful phases of 1744 and 1745. So every intention of coming back to this, but I've run out of time to play it now, and I need to get some other things punched, clipped, and learnt.